Welcome back from that break, that clip there. You listen to the chairman, executive chairman of Oyo State Road Transport Maintenance, Traffic Maintenance Agency, Major Ade Shagba there. Right, to discuss this and many other things in the studio this morning, in-house analyst Dolapo Charles Anjorin. Dolapo, good morning. It's good to have you.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chike. It's good to be back here again.
All right, quickly, you listened to the chairman Oitma, yes, where, yes, remorse there, and also it's a long interview, but you just had to cut it short. He also charges men to professionalism. However, this can bring back the life of the young boy. And once again, to the family, may the soul of Kehinde Alade, may his soul find rest as he has joined our illustrious ancestors. He will watch over his family. But will there be justice for Alade? There will be justice. It will only take time. But surely it will happen. The young boy is gone.
Yes, very sad. You know, we've lost a promising young kid. I mean, God knows what was going to become, you know, in future. But just like they say, God knows best. But just like you said, justice. Will the police corporal get a slap on the wrist for this act? Will it be excused away, you know, as part of you know, misfiring, or let me say, misaimed, you know, shot.
Okay, many people have been castigating the police for shooting, yes, because that was the end product. Death occurred. Oitma, the chase, should have gotten the number plate, the number, the license plate of the vehicle, and then track the vehicle and all that. However, based on sentiments, people are really not talking about the reckless driving of the father of this.
Yeah, you know, we talked about it yesterday.
Yes.
That the father, you know, by now will be regretting his reckless actions. You know, probably would have just allowed them to impound the vehicle, find the means of, you know, taking the child that wants to take exam to school, then go back to Oitma's office to iron things out. You know, patience, you know, would have saved a lot of this chaos and sadness
and needless
deaths. You know, but because we are a nation of lawlessness,
are we actually lawless in the
country? We are actually
there
lawless.
Are laws, man.
There are laws, but you know, there are certain laws are meant for the privileged. Certain laws are also meant for.
Well, when you break the law, then you understand that the law exists.
Yes. You know, what baffles me the most is that I've seen these Oitma guys in, you know, I've seen them work before. You know, when you drive against the traffic, I've seen a couple of them, you know, take a picture of your plate number, then, you know, probably pass it to the next junction where there are other Oitma officials, and they will flag you down. So I don't know why they did not exercise that discretion 2 days ago.
Unfortunately, it just happened. And then for those who drive against traffic, be careful.
Yes, this should be a lesson.
It's a big lesson.
We cannot.
Even this morning, I saw someone drive against traffic. I was feeling all comfortable with it. Not only driving against traffic, how about making phone calls while driving?
Yeah.
I think the Federal Road Safety Corps should be held responsible for the non-execution of their laws. And maybe Oitma should also add that to their laws. You catch anyone making phone calls while driving, let the person be arrested. Safety first.
Sorry, I want to chip this in. You know, we also have the vehicle inspection officers to VIOs. I think they've reduced that job to, you know, only checking.
I think there was a court injunction stopping them from operating, a federal high court injunction stopping them from operating.
Okay.
That's why nowadays you don't even see many of them on the roads anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm actually not aware of that,
Yeah,
because
I think that law came up in 2021.
2021. Okay.
2021,
I think I still saw them on the road. I mean, this month.
maybe just to make sure, maybe an illegal duty, but I'm very sure that these laws have been put in place. And also, we also want to look at this issue of you see, the vehicle inspection officers will be a story for another day.
Yeah. Because I told you yesterday that I used to be part of them. And I know one of the things our job description is, also punish offenders of dangerous driving.
Well,
yes,
we'll still talk about vehicle inspection officers, but not for today. Well, moving on. Yes, let's look at this. The Central Results Delivery and Coordination Unit is racing to present President Bola Tinubu a fresh set of ministerial scorecards with his second anniversary in office just barely a week away, which is May 29. The scorecards will focus on the performance of various ministries for their first quarter of 2025 as Tinubu's administration enters its midterm. That's 2 years on May 29. The confidential assessment, which covers the first quarter of 2025, is expected anytime from now. Looking at some of the ministries that may be, adjusted, we'll look at education, we'll look at security, oil and gas. But because of our time, we'll streamline it to only oil and gas. And maybe the petroleum sector, Ministry of Petroleum. That's where we'll be looking at. Dolapo, let's look at some of these ministries and delve into some of the appraisals. Starting with, let's start with finance. Yes. Okay. Let's start with Ministry of Finance, and we'll make it very brief because we'll still be looking at research institutes too. Let's go to finance. How well has the finance minister, Wale Edun, fared so far in 2 years, or less than 2 years? Because the ministers came on board months after inauguration.
For me, if I will rate the ministry personally, along with finance and budget and planning, I would want to rate them like 4/10.
4/10?
Yes.
Considering the fiscal policies, open market operations, yes, and the monetary policies.
Yes, I'm going to score them 4/10. First and foremost, as at last year December, there was no economic blueprint, which the Minister of Finance himself admitted to. How can you come on board and there's no economic blueprint? So it means what you have been doing is
trial and error.
Trial and error, which is very obvious, and we are seeing the effects, on the economy. You also take a look at their CME streams, budget and planning, because they actually work hand in hand. You look at the budget for 2025 proposal, we are spending 49 trillion. The expected revenue is 35 trillion. We have
running on a deficit of
13 trillion.
Yeah.
So on a monthly basis, we'll be borrowing 1.1 trillion naira. And this is predicated on the assumption that will ramp up 2.1 million barrels of oil per day. If you check the website of NUPRC, you also look at it vis-a-vis the cost of a barrel of crude oil in the international market. It is hovering around less than $70. So now, when you look at these assumptions, you begin to wonder, how are we going to fund 2025 budgets with all these assumptions? The Minister for Budget and Planning, Bagudu, said we should not be predicating budget based on indulgences, but on potentials. But these potentials, we are actually not seeing it.
But what are these potentials? What are these?
The potentials is because we have done, based on past precedent, we have done over 2 million barrels of crude oil before, and that's a very, very long time. We are even struggling to meet OPEC quota, despite the fact that we're a key member of OPEC, which
I
is
see you're
1.5.
trying to link finance with oil and gas.
Yeah,
now.
because it's actually interwoven. Yes. So we are struggling to ramp up 1.5 million barrels of crude per day. Currently, we are doing less than 1.4 million barrels per day. And out of these 1.4 million barrels per day, we are doing 447,000 barrels per day, you know, paying off, you know, the debt that we owe every day.
Is the ministry not thinking? Is the ministry not thinking in the right direction, especially when it comes to diversifying this economy? You know, because it's solely an oil-based economy.
Yes.
So if we're going to have a performance in the budget keeps soaring every year. And now we have the agricultural sector, which has not been fully harnessed, if it has been harnessed at all. You know, if you're going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, I think the agricultural ministry in Nigeria has been harnessed. Maybe you give it a 2 over 10 at the moment, because we're supposed to be cashing out from agriculture. Look at cocoa. Cocoa is big in the international market. We have so many products that are big in the international market, but we rely solely on oil.
Yes.
Is it that the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Budget and Planning are short-sighted when it comes to expansion of ideas for a robust economy?
I think they're actually short-sighted, because when they talk about budgets, when they say they are benchmarking our budget against crude oil, you really see them talk about other resources that can actually expand the economy, which is gas. We are sitting on about 2.4 trillion cubic measure of gas, and half of that, which is 53%, you know, is non-associated gas. Look at Qatar. Qatar left OPEC in 2019, and they were doing 1.2 million barrels of oil per day. The same barrels that Nigeria is also ramping up most times on a daily basis. But Qatar has actually moved away from crude. They have, you know, moved into LNG. Today, Qatar is producing about 110 to 120 million tons of liquid natural gas. Nigeria is struggling to meet about 24, million tons of gas yearly. We have a shortage of gas feedstock in Nigeria at the moment. And when you also look at it, the NNPC is busy trying to, explore oil in our frontier basins. Most recently, the one in Bauchi, where we have not been able to, decisively, say that
so
the amount of
just
crude
majoring on the minor and minoring
exactly,
on the major.
Because if you are majoring on, this LNG, it will open up the economy in a big way. Now, Qatar is promising President Trump $400 million, in private jets. $400 million. They are promising America up to like $1 billion investment in the US. Where are they getting the funds from? From LNG, gas. Now, United States is also one of the leading producers of LNGs in the world. Meanwhile, we are sitting down on a massive deposit of, hydrocarbon resources.
Because of our time, Dolapo, do you see the Minister of Finance retaining his office after May 29 if there be an appraisal by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
I think he would retain his office. He will, because he's a member of the inner caucus. If you look at this political history of Wale Edu, he's been with the president for a very long time. So I think he would retain his
How about the Minister of Budget and Planning?
The Minister of Budget and Planning, well, I think he may not retain his position.
Are you also considering the permutations?
I don't want to be categorical.
Are you also considering the permutations for 2027? Some people might just retain their seats
Of course,
Because
for
political reasons.
For political reasons.
All right. So
yeah,
the Minister of
possible.
Education, will he also retain his seat? Who are those ministers you feel their seats might be threatened?
You see,
If you were the president,
because of lack of performance,
yeah.
I'm actually struggling to even remember the name of any ministers because of lack of performance. In the past, you know, I can mention Obieze Kwesili, I can mention Akinwumi Adesina, I can mention Olusegun Agaga, I can mention Mobolaji Johnson, because they were doing something noteworthy in the economy.
So
but
for
these days,
for now,
you know,
I'm
I'm
going
even
to say,
struggling.
okay, what ministry? Let's not mention. Let's not,
Okay.
if you can't come up with a name now, what ministry do you think the minister should be taken off that ministry?
I think housing. At the moment, we have a deficit of, I think, about, is it not 28 million deficits in terms of provision of housing in Nigeria at the moment. You know, it's not even 2050 yet. The projection of UNESCO is actually coming to pass. The Minister of Education, I think, he should go home.
Okay.
There's nothing. He's offering nothing in that sector.
Okay.
Solid minerals. Oyetola.
No, not Oyetola. Oyetola is a minister of blue
sea economy.
Yeah,
we haven't seen anything as
the
regards
minister of solid minerals is Dele Alake.
Dele Alake is operating more or less like a presidential media aide on media. So solid minerals, blue economy. I'm not seeing anything from there.
How about the Ministry of Power?
Ministry of Power, I mean, that is in shambles. You still have the transmission company of Nigeria, you know, still in the hands of the government. That sector needs unbundling. At the moment, our budget cannot even fund capex expenditure.
What about the Minister of Defense?
Minister of Defense, I mean, he should go home. There's nothing we see. We are seeing the one over 2,000 between January and this time. At least the killings that the media has reported, 2,000 deaths.
Over 2,000.
Over 2,000 deaths.
Yeah.
So what is he still doing? Why is he still retaining? Why will he retain his seats?
All right,
non-performing ministers.
We'll go on this break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at the state of our research institutes in Nigeria, and then look at what's happening when it comes to funding, research, and capital votes. Stick around. Don't go away.
No doubt in my mind that with this collection, we are going to set agenda. More importantly, we are going to enforce social ethics. Because part of the problem of Nigeria is that the state is too powerful and the society is too weak. So when the state begins to misbehave, the weak society has no power to hold them into control. So we begin to do social ethicizing. So we not only report, we will not only inform, we will also set agenda.
Welcome back from that break. Well, the dream was clear, the vision untainted, and the mission remained sacrosanct. Research institutes, majority of which were established before independence to be the bedrock of agricultural revolution in an emerging country called Nigeria, was conceived, and was conceived well. The idea was to make the institutes a hub of research field for all available agricultural produce, both food and cash crops, in the country, and make it available to farmers and investors who will turn it into gold mines, which will eventually translate to food surpluses in the country. Today, the dream has become dead. The vision is blurred, and the mission a mere statement of expression, as majority of the institutes are mere shadow of themselves due to poor funding, corruption, poor government policy, late budget, bureaucracy, and total neglect. Of course, obviously, the effect is well pronounced, the most apparent being the unbridled importation of virtually all notable food crops, including toothpick, into the country. It has become inevitable. Well, besides lack of technological framework to maintain research programs, and even facilities and equipment and low agricultural research investment, among other factors, make nonsense of the notable structure on ground in most of the agricultural research institutes. To discuss this is a member of NASU, Research and Project Trade Group, Research Institute's wing, Joel Afolayan. Good morning. It's good to have you on the agenda this morning.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yes, before we delve into what brought research institutes, especially NASU members, to Ibadan, let's get to talk about research institutes and their near moribund state at the moment. The name shouldn't be research institutes anymore. It should just be, is it actually an institute?
It will still definitely be institute.
Do they still do researches now in institutes now?
You see, we still do research, but for ease of pronunciation and coding, that is why you have them as just research institutes.
Ease of pronunciation and coding. Is that not deceptive?
Because they do more things than only research. Research drives development.
Okay.
And development births innovation.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to naturally or ordinarily be called research, development, and innovative institutions. And that is why you have, after a number of names, you see allied institutions. For example, the Non-Academic Staff Union is Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions. That's why you have them in the university, polytechnic, colleges of education, libraries, research institutes, and in a number of institutions around that. Now, coming back to an idea of what the research is supposed to do, in the previous topic of the discussion this morning, you spoke about a number of things. And if you could look at it very closely, you discover that there are a number of research institutes in Nigeria with core mandate of taking care of a number of them.
Yeah.
In all the sectors of the nation's economy, we have one or two research institutes that is attached to them. But majorly or principally, in educational sector, we have more of research institutes. In transport sector, we have research institutes like NITT in Ogun State, as well as one in Zaria. In education, you have them almost everywhere.
So it's no longer about agriculture.
It's no longer about agriculture.
There's even NSLT, that's the Nigerian Institute of Science Lab Technologies.
Seriously. You have NSITF, Michael Ibo, National Institute for Labor Studies.
Yes.
The court are called all the sectors.
But these are just institutes. Now, the research institutes themselves in Ibadan, I know we have several research institutes.
Definitely.
There is the Forestry Research Institute. There is the National Institute of Horticultural Research. That's NIHOT. We have
Educational, economic research.
We have NISA. That's the National Institute of Social Economy. And then we even have some
university affiliated research institutes like
IRT,
FC,
more plantation,
FCE, and a number of them.
So we have, we even have some research institutes that are even moribund. There's the NCRI, the Cyril, and then we have many of them. Then
that's in Badeji
No, there's even one here in Ibadan.
They also have.
But if you go there, it's no longer what it used to be. It's a shadow of itself. Yeah. Now the question is, how many of these institutes do research? How many of their staff go on tours like it used to be back in the day? You know, they go on tours, they get their, you see people doing research work. You see, especially the ones I'm conversant with, you see people going to do research work on several species of trees, species of crops, plants, you know. You see these things, you see people going on tours for taxonomy issues, many. But today, is there still funding for research?
Before we get to funding, research itself has taken another dimension. And this is largely occasioned by the transformation we have seen in information and technology. In those days, even in the media, if you were to work on production, you know how many, the volume of the manpower that will go into that. But today, by the help of artificial intelligence and the number of advancements in research relating to information technology, the outlook of research has gradually changed. However, this requires committed and a political will to plunge resources into making sure that we tap into whatsoever opportunity that information technology had provided for us, which in itself is also a product of research. But today what you see is that the research institutes have been turned out or turned against itself by the political class. Because when you look at it, you expect that the outcome of our research supposed to reflect in our economy, outcome of our research supposed to have a direct link and reflection on the way we live our lives, like food security, which you carved as part of your opening this thing. And it's also expected to also be seen even in transportation. I want to join my voice with those who had condoled with the family of the
young boy,
that young boy.
Yeah.
If the product of research had been deployed in transport management, there wouldn't be a need to be chasing anybody around. You violate the traffic law, your bill is waiting for you. You will definitely go to pay big for it. So when you know that, that will automatically reset your brain. And you know that you won't even dare it. Even if by chance you do, you know that you cannot escape it. That is why you have to be looking for different categories of traffic law enforcement agents chasing one person, leading to the loss of the life of that young boy.
Due to lack of research. That's why you have multiplication of duties.
Doing close to nothing. So we are not yet seeing the result of all of these things. But research itself is capital intensive. Research itself has to do with the provision of ambience of environment that is going to motivate and also provide incentive for the research itself. A lot of research have been conducted in the universities and also a number of research institutes, but they are gathering dust on the shelves of whosoever that cares to see them. We have seen research being conducted on how to have genetically modified seeds that can boost and also transform the shortage that we have recorded in food security. But today, where do you get that? Transportation, we are research along cable transportation. In power sector, we should not be talking about, Nigeria is ranked the 5th power supply country in Africa, after Egypt and South Africa. What do they have in Egypt? They annex the opportunity that River Nile gives to them. But today in Nigeria, we even have much more alternative than hydropower. I have been to one of the locations in Nigeria where we have the liquefied natural gas, precisely in Bonny Island. I served in Bonny. And I said, while I was there, I said, these people don't have business being put on national grid generated from hydro. They have gas turbine. and it is from there they power it. Why can't we in Nigeria generally, in Nigeria University, if truly they have electrical and electronics engineering research team, as well as mechanical engineering research team, biogas in sub-agricultural engineering related fields, why can't the federal government give them the mandate and a benchmark of 5 years to generate their own power in the universities? And by extension, after that 5 years, they're supposed to have it as part of their corporate social responsibility to reach out to the excess of whatsoever power they might have generated to the host communities. And now just imagine the number of universities that we have in Nigeria today. And let's say those universities and their host communities are taken out of the national grid. Let us now see whether we are not going to have a stable power supply. So we have lesser number of people competing for the scarce. I am not really saying Nigeria cannot even generate. South Africa is boast of 50,000 megawatts. Nigeria is still talking about 4,000. That the national grid that collapsed almost every now and then. It has collapsed not less than 9 times this year, you know.
Even more than 9 times, I think.
So now, what is the justification for now bringing outright violation of relevant sections of the Nigerian Constitution into power supply, where you move some to ban to whatever and the other to ban? That is discriminatory. And if it is discriminatory, you are saying that some areas, by virtue of whatsoever, they are more important.
Social class.
So now, all these things now brings about, if by chance a university that's supposed to drive research and development, or a research institute that's supposed to drive research and development for innovation, is now being put on band C. Power supply is on exclusive list until recently. That we have not even started seeing the result of onboarding of that. Is on exclusive list, which means can only be coordinated from there. How do you now expect those universities to source fund to power equipments that are expected to drive research? Mindfully, don't forget that in the petroleum sector alone itself, we now have what we have never recorded. They said removal of fuel subsidy, and we have what do we call it? Refineries lying waste in Kaduna, in Port Harcourt. And now, when you have all of these things working, are we really supposed to have problem powering our equipment, even if at all we want to power it using fuel? We're not supposed to. But all these neo-colonialistic tendencies, it is IMF that will tell you how you are going to run your economy.
World Bank would dictate.
It is the World Bank that will tell you how to do this. And I think it is a problem of leadership and followership.
Problem of leadership and followership. Well, you are in Ibadan now. What's your business in Ibadan? I know the NASU, yes, Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions, NASU, are having a summit in Ibadan at the NIHOT, National Horticultural Research Institute. And what I know, you came up with a communique yesterday, and then what actually is the major discourse of the summit?
Thank you very much. We call it Trade Group Council meeting. And in NASU, by structure, we have about 7 trade group councils.
Okay.
But the one that brought us to NIHOT yesterday and today is for the Research and Project Trade Group Council.
Okay.
Now, in this Research and Project Trade Group Council, we are here for our regular meeting.
Okay.
And in our regular meeting, we take reports and feedback from all the research institutes. I think at the tip of my finger, we have about 80-something research institutes. Those are the research institutes that will have the presence of NASU.
Okay.
There are other research institutes
that don't have
they are not
the
within that number
Yeah.
that I have mentioned. We take reports from them. We extray the managerial structures there. We review activities in all the branches, and we come up with position on matters of collective effect, as well as matters that affect research, development, and innovation in Nigeria generally. Now, here, we have identified a number of things in the opening remark of the chairman of the Trade Group Council, as well as the vice president of the
National Vice President of NASU,
Comrade Adepeju Olukoya. He has extracted a number of things. Some of those things that are of internal interest to us are the manner in which the research institutes have been funded, and outright disregard to the agreement by the government, the one it signed with the Joint Research and Allied Institutions Sector Union, JORAISU, in 2010. A number of agreements have been signed. We have also considered the need to review some of those things, because when you have an agreement signed between union and government, event might have overtaken a number of things. And what are the contents of some of those agreements? We are talking about, just as we have the NUC as NUC for the university, we have NCCE for colleges of education, and BTE for the polytechnic. We're also demanding the need for the establishment for
a body
for the research institutes in Nigeria.
Okay.
That has the capacity of reducing the rate at which every research institute interacts and relates with the minister in their various supervisory ministry,
so
who are politicians.
What then is the place of ASURI? I know ASURI used to exist at some point. Association of that's Association of Research Institutes.
They are also there, just as we are considering these at our own level.
Why don't you
non-academic
don't you see? Okay, you're looking for a unified.
That is JORAISU. For example, in university we have JAC.
Yeah.
Joint Action Committee that comprises of the ASU, NASU, NAT, SAUTRA, or SANU. So in the research institute, we also have Joint Research and Allied Institutions Sector Unions.
Is this not ASURI, multiplication of
NASU,
association?
You know, there are
making it so complex.
No, it's not really complex, because there are matter that comprise of everybody.
Yes.
And at some point, where you break down, you know, there is this popular saying in Yoruba. They will say, that is, no matter how big the family is, you will still have your own clan. Some matters will still be of exclusive importance to you than matters of the community. So that is why we have different unions, but at some point we may also need to come together to fight a common cause. So NASU alone cannot be pushing for establishment of a regulatory body of activity for the university, for the research institute, because SAUTRA is there, ASURI is there. If we do it alone and we succeed, we are all going to benefit from it. So why can't everybody be dragged into having it achieved? So that is why we have that JORAISU. But that is not to say that at some point we may also need to, just as we are holding our program here in NIOT, I think about 2 weeks ago, the SAUTRA also hold. Unfortunately, it is now that also that host them. That goes to explain that at different points in time, we do things in common, and we also have to also break into our own private
smaller units
to also address some things.
So some of the things listed here include the worsening state of power supply in country, insecurity, payment of 12 months arrears of 53.37%, and then you also have unsteady price of petrol. It's a long list of what you've come up with to see that government tackles this for effective research that leads to development. Well, we'll be having more of this conversation later on, and I know you'll be going back to base. Yes. Ilorin is base, right? Yes, so we'll be going back to base, but we'll still connect. Maybe after the whole summit, we'll have a more robust discussion with you over maybe virtually we could do a virtual.
No problem.
But for the union or the association, NASU, and the Research and Projects Trade Group Council, yes, we'll be getting more from the place and seeing the resolution eventually. And we'll follow up and see what the federal government will be coming up with and the priority of government when it comes to research and development. Right, thank you, Joel Afolayan, for joining the conversation this morning, and also thank you, Dolapo and Johnny, for being here today. Before we go, a nation's culture resides in the hearts and in the soul of its people. Let's all join hands together to build the Nigeria of our dream. Let us keep the conversation going. Do follow us on all our social media platforms. On YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok is at Dominion Broadcast. And on the app X is at Dominion Cast. My name is Chike Ubogo. Do have a great day and stay safe.